So how is everybody doing?
I think better than this.
Better what?
Better
We're good.
than what's
Yes,
the
no?
Are they behaving themselves or it's just as bad?
It's, I think we're the worst in the world.
Right. Okay, we see you now.
Yeah, okay.
Hi, Bracha.
Hello,
Hi,
Bob.
Solomon. Hi, Shirley Ann.
Huh?
Um,
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Shirley Ann.
Hi, Shirley Ann.
Hi, Shirley.
Nice to see everybody.
For sure.
Yes.
likewise.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very hot day today.
Okay.
Oh, it's been very hot here. Very hot. Weather-wise, otherwise.
Otherwise,
I agree.
every which wise.
Yesterday, we thought we were going to elections again.
Oh, really?
Really? Really? Oh,
They thought,
We're not though.
But we're not.
That's good.
Question is, if we're talking about going, I was pleased that the Professor Gamzu, who was the head of Ichlov Hospital, was appointed, I guess, a couple of weeks ago, head of the Corona Committee.
uh-huh.
And he's putting his foot down,
So you should.
not permitting the usual 30,000 or so Bretzlav Hasidim who go Rosh Hashanah time, make a pilgrimage to Uman in Ukraine.
Really?
30,000.
It's not a
Wow.
law. It's something that they do at least once, if not 3 times a year, make this pilgrimage. But to them, it's very, very important. Well, I don't want to say what I want to say.
Do they walk?
So, do they walk?
It takes them a year for one to get to the next.
So how is he going to stop them?
Can't cross the
He's
border.
going to stand at,
Stop all the air flights.
Stop.
yeah. And he's been talking with whoever's in charge there. Because it will just be
It'll be bedlam.
bedlam, but also they'll go. Probably some of them have it.
Yeah.
And they'll come back. They
Yeah,
won't stay in
isolation.
Quarantine.
isolation.
Mm.
But I have to point out, it's come to my attention, whenever we say that the more observant are not obeying, we have to say equally seculars. If you've seen on the news some of these rallies that have been going out outside of Netanyahu's home, 10,000 people on
Wow.
top of each other.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can hear them. I can hear them in my apartment.
Yeah,
Really?
oh yeah.
That's
I-
the point.
When we're,
I can't get my face on, but I can see all of you.
Yeah, you got to take
Gary-
the flash off your camera, Sipora.
What?
You got to take the flash out of your camera.
No, this is a Mac. My camera's on. It's looking right on me. I don't know. It was working fine yesterday. But I can hear you all and I can see you all. So you just can't see me. That's all.
Okay.
Hi, Hannah.
somebody needs me to send link, just a second. I thought I sent it to her.
Hello, Bell.
Hi, Belle.
Hi, hello.
Hello. I'm gonna get
Kenny,
Hi, Belle.
Hi.
Whoever wrote the little blurb about Kenny, it's absolutely wonderful.
Girl, you're on the phone. We can see you.
Yeah, oh, okay. Yeah, but I on mute.
Oh,
No.
No.
You're not on
mute. I'm sorry about that.
That's how we know you're on the phone.
I know. I'm actually speaking to Hannah Belloc. This call.
Oh, hi, Hannah. How are you? But yeah, I sent it to her. Okay.
No, I got it.
You got it.
Hi, Nakama.
Okay.
Hi. I have to put on the air conditioner.
I can find one. No, I wanted to keep the doors the door to the Mirpeset. There are two of them open, but somebody's playing very loud music, which is nice, but it would probably disturb. I see Belle. Yofi.
What?
I see you.
Yeah, I see. I was trying to get you on the bigger one. So to hear others call using internet audio.
Do you want to hear about a coincidence?
Oh, there, we're on.
Okay. Hi, Isaac. Good to see you.
Isaac. Hi, Isaac.
Hi, Isaac.
Hi, everyone.
I might have told you this last week, but a couple of weeks ago we were up north. So
Right.
we're driving north and we pass a sign that says Zichron Yaakov. And I told Batya, quickly take a picture because that's where there's that. That's where Belle and Isaac's eldest, Michael, lives and has been living for a long time. 20 minutes don't pass, and I didn't send it yet to her, the picture, and I get a message from Belle. How are you? Now, their children were very nice to them because they had all booked to be on vacation because one of their grandchildren in Zichron Yaakov was getting married a couple of weeks ago, and it carried on, but they were not able to go. So they went somewhere else anyway. Last week gave a send-off to Sigal and didn't want to take anything away from that. So I didn't mention something that I'll mention tonight, unfortunately.
What is that?
I don't know.
Okay.
All right. Our community in the last, I guess it's 2 weeks already, has lost two very significant members, Batikva, Ed Wine,
Right.
who I studied Torah with. That's not going to be good. And just now,
I think people better mute themselves.
or I think, Doris, if you're here, you should be muting everybody, at least to begin with.
I am here and I will mute everyone.
Good.
Not Bracha.
Anyway, and Ken Karp.
Yeah.
These are two builders of Batikva, many, many years in different ways. And more than that, devoted fathers, husbands, grandfathers, and we wish their wives and strength. And let this class be for an Ilui Nafsham, and their memory be Livracha.
Amen.
Amen. So we are 1 week closer to standing before ourselves and Avinu Malkenu, and it's certainly in the air here. Those who start saying Slichot this entire month, we hear them early in the morning, and the whole Chodesh Elul, everyone blows the shofar, or as the mitzvah is, listens to the shofar, and you walk the streets here and you can hear it. And that's, of course, something special about this place.
Bracha, there's a fellow in my building that blows it every morning for us all. It's marvelous.
Yes, you appreciate it. At what time?
7.
Oh, because that's okay, because Sipora is usually up by 5:30. I kid not. Anyway, Today, we will be learning with Rav Adin Steinsaltz and Dr. Micah Goodman. So Rav Adin Steinsaltz actually died, I believe it was August 7th, just a few weeks ago. A great scholar, a social critic, but mostly known for his epic Talmudic work in translating the entire Talmud into modern Hebrew. Dr. Micah Goodman received his PhD from Hebrew University in Jewish thought. He is a fellow at the Sholem Hartman Institute, and he is the founder of a pluralistic Beit Midrash known as Ein Prat. And one more thing, I have the privilege of teaching his mother-in-law in a class that I teach here in Yerushalayim on Thursday mornings. So it's a small world. So with the help of these two great thinkers, we will continue to explore variables, key players in the process of mending ourselves. Just a quick recap of last week's essence. We discussed specific obstacles, challenges we confront as we strive to live valuable lives. One, the struggle between our human drives. And I'm going to share with you what Steinsaltz says about this himself. This combination, and this is a recap for anyone who was not here, of really what we said about this dynamic and the contradiction and the tension between our humane, but our human and our more material or beastly side. So Steinsaltz writes, this combination of angel and beast is only one of the strange and various combinations forming man. Angel and beast are incompatible contrasts, but in man they are created into a many-faced unity. The combining of the material, bestial body with the angelic, divine soul is characteristic of man's combination of contrasts. Flesh and soul, good and evil, are different names for the same things. Within their existence in man, there is no possibility of clearly defining the relation between them, although each of them has for itself a very clear and defined essentiality. The same contribution occurs in many forms and always in this indefinite way. The highest strivings and desires, and with these, with the same force, bad bestial wants. Reason on one side, and on the other, imagination and emotion, quite independent of each other. And so many desires of the most various kinds, innumerable wants and wills, simple and strange, all these are found in man. Thus we come to the great question, as we asked last week, what is man? What is the true essence of this unity of angel and beast, body and soul, reason and emotion, good and bad? Truly, of all these, there is not one that can give a satisfactory definition of man's real self. Only the combination of all these is man. This is the human in him. Man is not an angel, nor is he a beast. He is the combination of both, a man, a woman, and he or she is so with all the many combinations and links of these contradictory facets. There is no place for one of them without the others. Their unification into one creates the true being of the human being. It must be clear to all of us, we are not striving to be angels. You know that phrase when we say, oh, my child is such an angel. Think about it. I know what we mean when we say that, but is it a compliment? There's a famous midrash when Moshe is going to be giving the Torah to us. So he talks with the angels. And the angels say, why would you be giving such a precious treasure to human beings? So Moshe starts to question them and says to the angels, well, do you fulfill the mitzvah of respect for parents? And they say, no, we don't have any. Do you always be honest in a business deal? No, we don't have anything to do with that. And goes on. And it makes it clear, angels don't face the challenges that human beings face. It's easy to be an angel. That's not what God had in mind for us. And I think, yes, we'd like a better world, an easier life. But to say we wouldn't want to have to deal with these contrasts, I'm not sure we would so easily say that. We would then be robots, puppets, if you will. So Steinsaltz has put in his 2 cents. And it's important to note, as I'm sure you did, that he repeats at least 3 times the contrasts. If ever there was a time that we should be focusing on this, it is now as we look forward and prepare for the Yamim Noraim. The second obstacle that we mentioned to bettering ourselves, to really looking at ourselves and questioning our behavior is resistance to gratitude. And we said that sometimes we resist expressing gratitude because that means that I'm not fully autonomous. And some of us have a difficulty with that, are afraid to give it up. The third obstacle is the inability to stand still and be in the moment. We talked about a selfie last time. You can't just be there, but you have to take a picture without really focusing on what you're photographing. Photographing? I don't know what that. We don't necessarily learn and experience lishma, for pleasure. It always has to be for a utilitarian purpose. Steinsaltz goes on and says something about this as well. Curiosity is a characteristic of youth. All other primates abandon curiosity relatively early in order to deal with the problems of daily living, finding food, rearing offspring, but the prolonged childhood of humans gives them the opportunity to spend more time cultivating their curiosity. Many educational systems do not understand this. They try to make every subject relevant. I know as teachers we're told, if it's not relevant, why should they learn it? But this is fascinating what he goes on to say. But this is a big mistake. Teachers and sometimes parents think that relevance enhances the desire and the inclination to learn, when in truth, it actually destroys curiosity. And curiosity is what matters most. Our interest in irrelevant things, in things that have no immediate and maybe even no remote relevance to our existence, is part of our uniqueness as human beings. Making everything relevant and utilitarian can, of course, be helpful, but it can also kill the basic notion of curiosity. Surely there are certain realms of knowledge where it is fine to ask, what is the good of this or that? Or to see whether we can find a practical answer to a practical problem. Please God, may one come for you know what. But sometimes we just want to find out about what that object is, and relevance simply kills curiosity. 6 days a week, a lumberjack can be cutting down trees, but on that one Shabbat day, appreciate the tree. One might even say that it is the lack of continuous curiosity that slows human advancement. And the fourth challenge we mentioned last week, being an amkshe oref, being stiff-necked, closed to new and other perspectives, which ties in with what I've just read. By the way, I want to urge you, if you want to share something, question, say, so please, hopefully it will be okay, and you'll unmute yourself, because right now I'm only looking at the tikva symbol, and Gloria, myself, and welcome Chana. The fifth obstacle, thinking without doing. And then we also said doing something only mechanically. Micah Goodman, who's a scholar of Maimonides' thought, brings this quote from the Guide for the Perplexed. And it says, the goat, Seir Lazazel, of the Day of Atonement that was sent into the wilderness served as an atonement for all serious transgressions more than any other sin offering of the congregation. As it thus seemed to carry off all sins, have that image of putting the offering, the Seir Lazazel, and then it being sent away, it was not accepted as an ordinary sacrifice to be slaughtered, burnt, or even brought near the sanctuary. It was removed as far as possible and sent forth into a waste, uncultivated, uninhabited land. There is no doubt that sins cannot be carried like a burden and taken off the shoulder of one being to be laid on that of another being. But these ceremonies, we know this, are of a symbolic character and serve to impress men with a certain idea. I repeat that. These symbols are meant to impress people with a certain idea, make us think, and that will induce them to repent. As if to say, we have freed ourselves of our previous deeds, have cast them behind our backs, and removed them from us as far as possible, says Maimonides. And Micah Goodman brings this to stress that ritual without thought, psychologically, morally, will not impact on us and will not really move us to change. But it can inspire, if we think about it, just as tefillah on a daily basis makes us think about what's being suggested in the daily siddur. You know, we're praying to God, but I believe the older I get, that the prayers, if not equally more so actually, are meant to impact upon us and have us leave Shachrit, Mincha, Mariv a little differently, to act differently in our daily routine. Then there's also the challenge of self-worship, denial of value judgments beyond one's own, We talked of our hesitancy to both avoid, give, or receive criticism. And we'll recall that my niece Hila suggested that criticism, which is so appropriate for this time of year, begins with self-criticism. And we went on to say how incredibly important it is for us to feel that we are one of a community. And therefore, we say Ashamnu in the plural, and that we are responsible for accepting and giving criticism constructively to others. And if we don't, when it need be given, we are held responsible for that. You don't just say, I'm gonna let them figure it out, because it brings that person down, and eventually it can bring us all down. Goodman does something very interesting with chapter 18 in the book of Ezekiel. And I'm hoping that somebody will have a question at the end of this paragraph. Talking about taking responsibility for our own actions. So he brings this keta from Yechezkel. The word of the Lord, Ezekiel is speaking, came to me. What do you mean by quoting this proverb upon the soil of Israel? And the proverb is, parents eat sour grapes and their children's teeth are blunted? As I live, declares the Lord God, this proverb shall no longer be current among you in Israel. What is that proverb in fact saying? It's saying if the parents do such and such, the children will either do such and such, or they'll certainly be impacted by that evil doing of the parent. But through Ezekiel, God declares that's not going to be so. Consider all lives are mine. The life of the parent and the life of the child are both mine, yes. The person who sins, though, only he shall die. A child shall not share the burden of a parent's guilt, nor shall a parent share the burden of a child's guilt. Moreover, if the wicked one repents of all the sins that he or she committed and keeps my laws and does what is just and right, he or she shall live. So what's being said here? Each one of us has to take responsibility. I'm reminded of that marvelous film with Henry and Jane Fonda on Golden Pond, if you recall, from years ago. She's already in her 40s, and she's still blaming her father. And I think it's, who plays his wife? Katharine Hepburn says to her daughter, Jane Fonda, in the movie, how long are you going to not rise to the challenge? Take your own responsibility. Now, I said I was hoping somebody would have a question about what was just said here. Anybody? Do you want to say that, this doesn't jive with something that we read in Sefer Shmot in Exodus?
Yeah, but about the parent for the generations afterwards. I forget the exact wording.
Yes, exactly. That there it says, Adonai poked avon avot al banim, that children, God will remember the sins of the parents on the children. But two things. You have to read, and often it is not read till the end of the pasuk. When will the child be punished also? If they are sonai, if they also, like the parents, hate me. But it says, if yoavuoti, if they will love me, then they will not be punished. But what's incredible about this, and this is why Goodman brings this, you could say, this is still in the Bible, Ezekiel. How could Ezekiel be contradicting the Torah, Sefer Shemot? But Micah is bringing this, saying this is another example of bringing God's laws and his messages into an overall picture. And Ezekiel is suggesting that we reform the Torah. Now that sounds sacrilegious, but no, our life is all about growth with respect to God, just as we know God did not come down on Avram when he questioned him. Life is dynamic. If it wasn't, we wouldn't be thinking about the coming days of awe. Food for thought. And the next challenge is what Heschel, Avram Yoshua Heschel suggested last week, that rather than ask what is required of me, many just ask, what will I get out of life? Now, we should all want to get something out of life, but that can't be the only purpose to our lives. Micah Goodman suggests that we note another question. Very interesting. If you were to ask a young person, what are you going to be when you grow up? Give me an example of an answer that you would expect. Don't think too much.
Doesn't that every little boy want to be an astronaut?
Somebody will say an astronaut. Give me another example.
A teacher, a fireman.
Well, one of those, you should try to dissuade them, especially, you know. Okay, so what Zipporah and Bev have suggested is, and this is what Goodman suggests, that in modern times and in the Western world, when people are asked that question, what are you going to be? They immediately believe that you're asking them about their career. They'll say, well, I went to school, I got an education, and I have created my personality. I finished that, and now I'm going to be a fireman, a lawyer, an astronaut. Versus what the ancient Greeks did. And he mentions this because, as I said, he is a scholar of Rambam, Maimonides, and Rambam took this from the Greeks. Our whole life is a process of creating our personality, creating it and changing it, not necessarily dramatically. And as the ancient Greeks expected, when asking their young an answer, a question of what you're going to be, what would be preferable isn't that the young immediately think of their job. What's going to be my job? It's very important, yes. However, the response that the Greeks were looking for was, what are you going to be? I hope I'm going to be brave. I hope I'm going to be modest, humble. Now, these two different answers reflect the duality of our being. We are practical, but we also have to ensure that there is that more lofty side of us. Now, this value of modesty or humility, it's a quality, perhaps the quality, playing a part in probably all of the challenges we have just spoken of. So we're going to focus on that quality, because without it, we would not be getting ready to face God and feel that we have to answer to him or answer to other fellow human beings. A person who doesn't have modesty feels that he or she is the priority. Goodman warns, oh, that it were so simple to say, value humility and all will turn out okay. Just because I just said that modesty, humility is crucial to creating the kind of personality I think we all want, it doesn't mean that it's an easy quality to have consistently. Now, Goodman explores this idea through King Saul, in the book of Samuel 1. We're going to read excerpts from a couple of chapters, and while we're reading it, I want you to try to note, why does Samuel choose Saul to be our first king? What are some of the disappointments vis-a-vis Saul as the first king? And how does he change? Keep that in mind. Now, just a bit of background. We know that God did not have in mind for Bnei Israel, the Israelites, to have a human king. That was not his plan. However, he decides to listen to their plea. And this is where we'll open. This is, as I say, Samuel, and God is speaking with him, the prophet Samuel. And if I read certain psukim fast, it's because it's not that crucial. But the people refused to hearken unto the voice of Samuel, and they said, nay, but there shall be a king over us, that we also may be like all the nations, and that our king may judge us, and go out before us, and fight our battles. And Samuel heard all the words of the people, and he spoke them in the ears of the Lord. And the Lord said to Samuel, okay, listen to their voice, and make them a king. And Samuel said unto the people of Israel, go you, every man unto his city. Now, Samuel was known to be totally anti-monarchy. He couldn't see how you could keep God while still having a human king. So it's interesting that despite his obsession with that, he is the one who initiates and appoints the king. Well, he's got to listen to God. Now, who is going to be the king? Interesting, there was a man of tribe of Benjamin. Now, why is that important? Benjamin had all the other tribes not liking that tribe. I'm just saying it very, very quickly. They were considered low man on the totem pole. So it's kind of strange that that's where the king of Israel is going to come from. And he had a son whose name was Shaul. Now, pay close attention. Young and goodly. Sometimes that's translated handsome. And there was not among the children of Israel a goodlier person than he. From his shoulders and upward, he was higher than any of the people. So we have somebody who's good looking and he's tall. And then Samuel is speaking to Saul, and you'll get the gist of it. And as for thine asses that were lost 3 days ago, set not thy mind on them, for they are found. And on whom is all the desire of Israel? Is it not on you and all your father's house? You see that Samuel is having to convince Shaul, you are who everybody wants. It's very hard for Shaul to comprehend that. And Shaul answered and said, am I not a Benjamite of the smallest of the tribes of Israel? And my family, the least of all the families of the tribe of Benjamin? Wherefore then speakest thou to me after this manner? Now, is it just that Shaul knows that he is of the smallest tribe? Or there might be another possibility, which I don't want to say, but think about it. And Samuel called the people together unto the Lord to Mitzpah. And he said unto the children of Israel, thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, I brought up Israel out of Egypt, and I delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of all the kingdoms that oppressed you. But you have this day rejected your God, who himself saved you out of all your calamities and your distress, and you have said unto him, no, but set a king over us. Now therefore present yourselves before the Lord by your tribes and by your thousands. So Samuel brought all the tribes of Israel near, and the tribe of Benjamin was taken. And he brought the tribe of Benjamin near by their families, and the family of the Mitri, which was the lowest family of the lowest tribe, was taken. And Saul, the son of Kish, was taken, but when they sought him, he could not be found. He's about to be anointed, but he's not there. Why wouldn't he be there? Think about that. What could possibly be a reason that Saul, knowing he's about to be anointed, isn't there? Therefore, the people who were surprised that their king is going to come from the Benjamin tribe, therefore quickly asked of the Lord further, is there yet a man come hither? Meaning, maybe there's somebody else who's going to take over. They were hopeful. And the Lord answered, behold, he has hid himself among the baggage. And they ran and fetched him thence. And when he stood among the people, he was higher than any of the people from his shoulders and upward. Anybody want to suggest why Shaul wasn't willing to believe what Samuel was telling him, and why he might have run away? In one word.
He was afraid.
He was afraid? Sure, that could be. There's another possibility also. Okay, we'll keep thinking.
Too humble? Felt unworthy.
Humble, okay?
Unworthiness.
The guy may be humble, can't see himself. He doesn't think of himself that way. And Samuel said to all the people, see you him whom the Lord has chosen, that there is none like him among all the people. And all the people shouted and said, Yechi HaMelech, long live the king. Then Samuel told the people the manner of the kingdom, and wrote it in a book and laid it up before the Lord. And Samuel sent all the people away, every man to his house. And Shaul also went to his house. I'm continuing. But certain base fellows said, some that really were not pleased with Shaul's appointment, how shall this man save us? And they despised him and brought him no present. But Shaul was as one that held his peace. In other words, and this is crucial. So there were some that didn't like him, weren't pleased, hated him, It didn't bother him. Please remember that. And it was so on the morrow that Shaul put the people in 3 companies, and they came into the midst of the camp in the morning watch and smote the Ammonites until the heat of the day. And it came to pass that they remained, that they that remained were scattered, so that 2 of them were not left together. And the people said unto Samuel, who is he that said, shall Saul reign over us? Bring the men, that we may put them to death. What is this meaning? He just succeeded against the enemy, the Ammonites, and now there are people who might have hesitated before are saying, where are those people who are questioning Shaul's ability? Let's kill them. And Shaul said, there shall not a man be put to death this day, for today the Lord hath wrought deliverance in Israel. Again, doesn't bother him that there are those who are not by his side. And all Israel heard say that Shaul had smitten the garrison of the Philistines. I'm taking from chapters. And that Israel also had made himself odious with the Philistines. And the people were gathered together after Saul to Gilgal. And the Philistines, they fought, When the men of Israel saw that they were in a strait, for the people were distressed, then the people did hide themselves in caves and in thickets and in rocks and in holes and in pits. Now some of the Hebrews had gone over the Jordan to the land of God in Gilead, but as for Saul, he was yet in Gilgal, and all the people followed him trembling. And he tarried 7 days according to the set time that Samuel had appointed. Just to remind you, Samuel had said, don't do anything without me. But Samuel came not to Gilgal, and the people were scattered from him. And Shaul said, okay, bring hither to me the burnt offering, peace offerings. And he offered the burnt offering. And it came to pass that as soon as he had made an end of offering the burnt offering, behold, Samuel came, and Saul went out to meet him, that he might salute him. And Samuel said, what have you done? In other words, he disobeyed God. He was not supposed to do that offering. But similar to when Bnei Israel begged Aaron to build that golden calf, Aaron gave in. He claimed he wanted to keep the people together. Saul is facing a similar problem. Saul says, because I saw that the people were scattered from me, and that thou camest not within the days appointed, and the Philistines assembled themselves together against Michmas. Therefore said I, now will the Philistines come down upon me to Gilgal, and I have not entreated the favor of the Lord. That's why he wanted to offer the sacrifice. I forced myself therefore and offered the burnt offering. And Samuel said to Saul, you have done foolishly. You have not kept the commandment of the Lord thy God, which he commanded you. And for now would the Lord have established your kingdom upon Israel forever, but now thy kingdom shall not continue. The Lord hath sought him a man after his own heart, and the Lord hath appointed him to be prince for his people, because thou hast not kept that which the Lord commanded you. And Samuel said, though thou be, pay close attention,
Getting there.
though thou be little in thine own sight, art thou not head of the tribes of Israel? Samuel is acknowledging, okay,
I was getting
sure.
set up, that room, as our computer room and guest
Stephen, I
room.
think that's you. Please mute yourself.
I thought I was muted by the staff.
Thank you. So Samuel now says something very, very important to Shaul. Shaul, who he had picked because he was so modest. And that's why he reacted in the beginning. Not just out of fear, but he couldn't imagine. He didn't think of himself that way. And the imagery Goodman points out is that you have this tall individual who is now in this high position, and he appears to have high self-esteem. Why do I say that? Why do you think? Because how does he react until now? when there are people that hate him? Huh? How did he react? Did it bother him? Anybody? Please try to unmute yourself. No. Shaul, we read, it did not bother him. It did not bother him because he had not just modesty, and that's different from self-esteem. He had high enough self-esteem to begin with that it didn't matter to him that not everybody agreed with him. That's what a leader is about. However, what happens? Samuel says, I have a sense that you now are beginning to think that you have more power than you should. For you to have decided on your own to sacrifice in preparation for the battle with the Philistines, you should not have done that. But now Shaul is concerned about what people think of him. Now, Goodman points out, when you're concerned about what other people think of you, that usually means you don't have enough inner strength. I'm going to leave that for a moment. And the Lord sent you on a journey and said, go and utterly destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they be consumed. So we know what happens. Again, Shaul is meant to kill every single one and not take anything from their belt. He does that except for one thing. He lets the king live. That's his downfall also. People took of the spoil, sheep and oxen. And he's questioned again. Why did you do this? And he says, Samuel to him, because thou hast rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king. And Saul said unto Samuel, I have sinned, for I have transgressed the commandment of the Lord and your words, because I feared the people and hearkened to their voice. Now therefore I pray you, pardon my sin and return with me, that I may worship the Lord. And Samuel says, absolutely not. And then it goes on, and David, who comes to play harp for him, becomes known that he can save the day and that he is the one who conquers Goliath. And at first, Shaul is open to that. But then when he sees Saul was very wroth, and this saying displeased him, and he said, they have ascribed unto David 10,000s, and to me they have ascribed but thousands, and all he lacketh is the kingdom. And Shaul eyed David from that day and forward. Now, I bring this, as Goodman brings this, that we see how people evolve, and it's so complicated. Shaul is liked by Samuel because he was modest to begin with. He was to begin with. Thomas Hobbes says, power is not about something you need, but once you have it, you're starved for more. And we could create a long list of politicians that we know that this is the case, and not just politicians. So what happened is that Shaul began a certain way, but once he was in that position, his self-image wasn't strong enough to let him do what was right. He let others influence him. I'm not going to settle this with you now. This is meant to bring before us how very complicated life is. And we can be one way, and then certain things happen, and it takes a very special person to be able to hold on to a quality that is needed to rise above everything else. If you're not modest, you're not going to let anybody else in the room have importance. So, especially now, when all of us are looking to our leaders to have wisdom and to make right decisions, and dare they not bring in politics or their egos, we have to know of what they're fighting with. I pray that they're at least struggling with. I can't want people to like me. I have to be modest. On the other hand, that doesn't mean that I don't have enough self-esteem to make decisions. And this Gamzu, in an interview, the one who I said earlier is making the decision, and hopefully will stick to it, of not allowing the 30,000 Hasidim to go to Uman. He says it's not easy because he knows that these people are looking at him and want him to do that. Not easy at all. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm not seeing if anybody would like to share a thought before we go on about any of this. Please do.
You know, sometimes there are people who, you know, like famous people, stars and everyone else, and, you know, they're in the limelight, and then when they're out of the limelight, they don't know what to do with themselves. And quite often they go into a depression. And I guess that's kind of like what happened with Saul when he lost the leadership position and his abilities. He sort of went into a depression, and he needed David to play his harp for him and to help him get out of the funk that he was in because of his distress.
Bracha?
Yes.
I'm thinking about what's going on, not only in Israel, but in Canada, the United States, and Europe, about the rise of populism, where the small man in the street, the small women, the children, the teenagers, students are rising up, and they're saying, we want justice, we want equality, we want inclusivity. And they have the social media at their back. And the leaders are going to have to start to listen and maybe back off or figure, well, we can't do what we want as much as we used to be able to do. I think that's a factor now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just rather pathetic to think that at a time like this, that we can't trust the people who are meant to care for us, that they're thinking of what really is best. You know, and then somebody who's a leader, that's why we discussed last week how a king, no, I'm sorry, it was in another class. We read in Parshat Shoftim how a king is meant to have two Sifrei Torahs, that he has one in his room and he has one that's written for him that he takes with him wherever he goes. And that says so much, that even the human king, even if he is king, he's got to ensure, if we want to be sure that he's going to do what's best, really best, then if he doesn't have in mind that there's Melech Ha'olam, then we can't trust him. And that doesn't mean that it's somebody who's dati or not dati. But it's so complicated because you're not going to get somebody to go into politics unless they have a strong enough ego. And as we learned in these prakim from Shmuel, that you'll start off one way, but it's so easy to become corrupt. So people that we might think, wouldn't it be great if they would take on a leadership? Either they do and they also fall, or they don't because they don't trust. They don't trust that they won't fall. And nobody, as we began, is going to be an angel. There's no way. There's no way. So the challenges tell us that it's so complex, so complex. And yet, as we ended last week, again, I want to close with 2 words of optimism from today's thinkers. So, interesting. The word Shana, Shin Nun Hey, means a few things. We know it, Shana Chadasha, New Year. Shana also means to teach, but it also means to repeat. And Steinsaltz points out, the Hebrew phrase Shana Chadasha, New Year, contains within it a contradiction. Shana, year, denotes something that repeats itself again and again, whereas Chadasha, new, denotes change, emergence from a cycle of repetition. And in fact, we do this year in and year out. And because there's repetition, we don't let that stop us from looking ahead and for potential possibilities. He goes on, in order to transform transgression and past neglect, in order to change, one must transcend all the bounds of reality. So as much as I say we have to live in this world, not be an angel in heaven, he urges us to feel that we can go beyond reality. Listen closely. This requirement is quite a tall order, but it is not impossible, nor is it uncommon. As a matter of fact, it is found in the daily recitation of the Shema. V'ahavta, you shall love God, your Lord, bechol levavcha, with all your heart. So we understand what that can mean. And that represents the level of rectification of deeds and rectification of drives. Then it goes on to say, and love God bechol nafshecha, with all your soul. That is the rectification of oneself, of one's direction, to the point of self-devotion. So, and nefesh is your life. Your life. So if you love God with your whole heart and with your soul, how much more could you do? Well, it goes on to say, bechol meodecha, with all your might. And there are different interpretations. But listen to this. Steinsaltz says, bechol meodecha, with all your might, denotes that after you have done everything you can do more, do what you are incapable of doing. Now, isn't that a challenge to all of us? Do what you are incapable of doing. I'm going to write that down on a little piece of paper and have it with me. And then Micah Goodman points out, if you look at the Tanakh, you see the following. In the Bible, and he just gives a few examples here, Nothing works first time around. The flood destroyed the world, and this, the second one, is still around. Maybe it's not in a good state right now, but the second one is here. The first Luchot HaBrit, the first tablets, were broken, and only the second set lasted. Shaul's monarchy, Israel's first, did not succeed, but his successor, David's, thrived. Why? Micah asks, is there this biblical tendency? And I think we all have to accept this, acknowledge it. Failing is part of learning. We all know that at this age. What is it? What doesn't kill you, you learn from. And so therefore, both these thinkers urge us to continue, to go on. And so we must. Again, anyone? A closing thought, question?
I would like to say that really these times are very, very trying in Canada, in Israel, probably everywhere. And without trying to sound melodramatic, I find comfort in these sessions because you're bringing us to back to sources that are stable, that we can rely on. And of course, with your insights and bringing us to think, to take things forward and to think, to really think, I just find it very comforting. And thank you.
I thank you. I believe that was my sister, my dear sister. Anyone else? I don't mind listening to more of that. Okay. All right. So please stay well. I also want to, not for next session, but the next series, which I believe is starting on the 10th. It's actually, the next series is going to be on Thursdays. If any of you haven't seen and plan on being there, the movie, Adam Sandler's movie, I think it's called The First 50 Dates. You might want to take a look at it. It'll be worth watching. If not, you'll still understand what's going on. So not the next one, but after that. Anyway, we want to thank Doris for being with us and everybody else. Please stay very well. Take care.